All right, so this is a creative's guide to ROI. Basically, the point of this panel, I'm hoping that it's not just us up here talking and me asking them questions that I wrote down. I'd love for y'all to throw out questions, make this more interactive. Oh, sorry, thank you, Jeremy. Make this as interactive as possible. So what we'll do is we'll go through a little bit of the data, right? I know it's weird having the creative guy say data. I do know it exists. Then go through a little bit of a creative process that we all agree with and dive into some case studies. So we have Mindy Robinson right here, and you can see her title right here, AVP of Marketing and Creative Director of Lamar. Mike McGraw, make sure I get your title right here, Mike. Marketing Solutions for Clear Channel Outdoor. Chad Hutchinson, Creative Director from Adams Outdoor, and myself, Eddie Hurdy, National Creative Director of Outfront Studios. So let's dive into it real quick. So I said I'd have some stats for you. This is a not so real stat, but definitely kind of real. I think we all can agree on this one, right? But to dive into that, when you think about out of home, right? And just to build the case for creative, as whoever sat in this last panel, our audience is built in, right? It's, they're out there, they're seeing us anyway, so we are the face of the medium, creative, right? When you think about the right time, right place, small print here, a study confirmed that 70% of consumers surveyed engaged with contextually relevant out-of-home messaging. So in that instant, in that moment, that creative has to make sense. If it doesn't, you kind of ignore it. You kind of don't care. This stat I absolutely love. 1 in 4 Americans have posted some sort of out-of-home on their social media, right? If you don't believe us, look at any of our social media channels. It's kind of this phenomenon. Everybody likes to see their face really big on a billboard, except for maybe a few of us, myself included. But you don't do that of boring ads, right? You don't take pictures of things that suck. That's just kind of common sense. I think we all can agree on that. So moving on to some things that we all agree on as far as processes is, like they said in the previous panel, if you're not starting with a conversation, you're trying to cram something, trying to cram a square into a round hole, right? If we have to start every creative concept idea with a conversation. That's super key. So before you design a line, know what you're going to do before you buy, right? Like so many times you get that billboard like, hey, okay, we got to order up for, 2 billboards, 3 bus shelters, and a bus king. It's like I'm at a Waffle House or something ordering hash browns and shit. Like that's not what we do, right? We're not trying to cram shit into, these spaces. We want to create a campaign that makes those spaces come alive, right? That's the main point of this. And design campaigns, not signs. How many of y'all in here are in sales? Do y'all like selling one poster at a time? Hell no. That's the appropriate answer. Thank you. Yes. That's not what you want to do, right? You want to sell one campaign that covers a minimum like 8 to 150, 200 canvases, right? That's the idea that we're going after. And out of home should scream on 3 levels, right? Audiences, context, and craft, right? These things have to be present. They have to relate to what these viewers are seeing. And with craft especially, it has to look good. I'd almost argue, and I'm sure y'all probably agree, craft is the most important thing in my mind. You can take a somewhat okay concept, but it looks absolutely impeccably beautiful. We got Wendy from Art Pop here, she'd agree. It looks like art. People are going to want to look at it. They're going to take pictures of it. They're going to want to post it. All right, so and the final thing, people are smarter than you think. You don't have to spell cat for them. Don't explain everything. This is like a key component, especially in a world where we have a bunch of these. You just have to engage them. You have to get them excited. That's the key point, the key takeaway. So now I'm going to shut up a little bit and let these fine people over here take over. We're going to run through some case studies. And again, I can't stress enough, if you have a question, right, anything you want to ask about these case studies, just please raise your hand. I want y'all to participate as much as possible. All right, so we'll kick it off with, I believe, Mindy talking about Accutemp.
Thank you, Eddie. So, yeah, this is nice, huh? So as he said, it is super important to start with a conversation. I'm going to show an example, obviously this one, of what happens when someone does not do that versus when they do start with a conversation. So when somebody is an order taker, you're going to get a result like we just saw. If they go into a meeting and they draw a rectangle and they say, okay, now tell me what you want on your billboard, that's what you're going to get. When you start with the true marketing objective and then you let the creative person actually be the problem solver, they take that marketing problem, whatever is keeping them up at night, and they find a way to solve it with a creative execution. So with this one, this was one that we aligned with the local advertising agency. Accutemp had just rebranded, and their mission was to become the go-to home comfort service provider. So they wanted to be top of mind for when that air conditioning emergency happens. So what they did was they ran a digital campaign, and while they were showcasing their services, they were also feeding the consumer a little bit of value. So they were giving them the temperature. You can click one more time, Eddie. So what they were doing was they did a really nice digital campaign, also an online campaign. Both were using a weather trigger, and those were from the same data source, so they were always in sync. Most importantly, these two medias together led to a 30% increase in 2018.
I love the consistency, right? It's not two different looking ads from one to the other. That's something that a lot of brands kind of miss sometimes.
So I'm up next. This is a campaign that ran on a couple of national markets, New York, Boston, Philly, and Chicago, I believe. Audible, really smart use of out-of-home, using conditional triggers, dynamic content, as we sometimes call it, but taking data sources, targeting people that are obviously sitting in busy traffic where it's congested, and coming up with headlines like this that are relevant contextually, highlighting books that make sense, sort of tying the two together, showcasing some of the titles that are available on their platform. You know, we like to say in out-of-home, 7 words or less, and we have these sort of rules or best practices. Not that they're always necessarily carved in stone. You know, they decided to have a promotional offer at the bottom there, but at least they were smart about the way they used the panel and the way they focused on the creative. The other thing I love to call out about this one is that they did a really good job of avoiding what we like to call camouflage, environmental camouflage, right? If you know this is going to be on an urban background where you have a lot of browns and grays and blacks, you know, using bright colors to pop and make sure the board separates from the background. So I think there's a couple more examples of this. You go to the next slide. So they did traffic triggers, they did weather triggers at the top there, and then ones that weren't necessarily triggered by anything other than time of day. So, you know, at the end of a long week on a Friday during drive time, showing that one on the bottom. So again, this was a great use of out-of-home, I think, real simple, smart, creative, very effective. The goal here was to get people to download the app, and it was considered very successful based on an attribution study and the results they saw.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Right. I'm going to break off the stage. So Beacon Point, they are a memory care facility in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they actually had been in the Portage area for quite a while, but they didn't have a good brand presence, and they'd never done any outdoor advertising. Actually, they'd done pretty much no advertising whatsoever. And so this gets back to, I think, one of the first points that Eddie brought up. It was a conversation. So we invited this client into our office with our management team, the sales team, and then myself as creative director got to be in there and part of it. And it was just an exploration. It was just trying to figure out what it is that they're trying to achieve. What do they want to accomplish with this campaign? And we discovered through that process that they are a facility with 20 rooms, and they only had 10 of them filled. And so when you're a facility like this, and you're not filling rooms, so having 10 rooms unfilled is basically losing $200,000 a month in potential revenue. And so they were talking to us to see what we could do, what we could bring to the table. And we put a program together that was digital bulletins, it was static bulletins, it was posters, and it was digital display. After 3 months of the campaign being live, they had filled all but one of their rooms. And they became lifelong advocates for outdoor. And they actually, just this year, they re-upped and they put all of their money. The only other source that they were spending anything in last year was yellowpages.com. And they took all
Seriously?
that revenue and they gave it to us. And so now we're doing their outdoor, their digital display, their SEO, and their SEM. We got total control of the campaign.
So yellowpages.com will get you 10 rooms. That's good. Good to know. That's amazing. Wow. So I'm going to talk about one real quick and just question, poll, how much would you pay for this? Come on, throw a number out. This is great. You see this all the time. It's a bonus? Yes, we'll bonus you this piece of crap. Yeah, so they were paying $4,000. I think that was like the annual contract. So basically, yeah, bonus for this. Oi, like this is more of a headache than anything, right? This is freaking awful. And to Chad's point, this was a conversation that needed to be had desperately. So we went and had a conversation with them and turned it around a bit. So that car at question mark was for this guy, John Foy, the strong arm. And over the past 2-3 years, it's grown into a $2.3 million contract from that $4,000 pain in the ass. So it's changed a bit. So a few points I wanted to make on this, on the revenue side. One, for the out-of-home vendor, that's a lot more money for you, right? Like, so there's your connection. The client was actually going to cancel the $4,000 thing, shockingly enough, until we could prove to him that it would actually make sense to do this. And the other point I want to make on this is the earned media, right? This heartbeat graph thing here is showing the client's social presence, where they were essentially dead, no pulse at all until the campaign posted, and then they were kind of boom, shocked back to life, just from a campaign, right? Just from the creative. My favorite story on this is when it posted, people were asking, like, I haven't seen that trailer for that movie. I don't, John Foy, the strong arm, right? It engaged them and intrigued them. It made this guy into like a hero, and it's been working for him ever since. So on that point, talking about, Mindy and Mike talked about some social amplification, or digital capabilities, social amplification here. I'd love to throw that question out to y'all. How do you feel digital capabilities has changed your job in the creative industry, specifically, how, just with revenue, right? Like specifically, how are you able to grow that revenue with the capabilities? Mindy, you want to kick it off?
Well, from a creative perspective, it's been huge. We've always been able to put the message in the right place at the right time, and now we can be contextually relevant and put the right message. So, and it doesn't just have to be digital, it can also be static. We just did some really cool executions in some really cold markets for Panera, where they were having, it was snowing, and so we put a really hot bowl of soup with steam coming out of it. So that's also being contextually relevant.
That's awesome. And when you think about, the world of, all these agencies asking, like, hey, I want to see the most latest and greatest idea, how, when you're thinking about digital capabilities, does that kind of make you put the cart before the horse with the creative concepting? Or, do you flip the script and say, no, screw that, or both?
I think it always starts with understanding the consumer journey. So if we're talking to a client and they really understand their audiences and where they go and how we can reach them, it always leads to having better insights that can help the creative be more relevant.
Awesome.
Here, hold on. So just to throw out there too, I think that what we have to keep in mind is that these are all just tools, and creativity can solve pretty much any problem. So I think to your point of, like, don't put the cart before the horse. Let's be creative and not allow the technology to get in our way.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I think that, that's kind of at the heart of this conversation when you think about not putting the cart before the horse and allowing these tools, as you said, Chad, to be that instrument. That's how we avoid those one poster showings, right? Those single one-offs. Because if we're starting with that conversation, we're understanding that business, we're diving into the capabilities that we know we have, that's how we're able to amplify the campaign, how we're able to grow that. Great point. Any other questions, anybody? Nothing? No? Y'all can speak up anytime. All right, so we're going to keep rolling with some case studies. Again, just interrupt. I think the first one up is Mike. If it goes to it. There we go.
All right, this one I'm going to get down to. It's easier. This was for Universal Orlando. I love this example. I wanted to make sure we had one in here that was printed. There's been so much talk about digital and being contextually relevant. They did a series of these, and it was to generate interest in selling season passes. You would never know that from the creative. Again, what they're trying to do here is make the characters the heroes on the billboards, literally, right? They're heroes. It's Spider-Man. If you want to flip to the next couple, Eddie, Harry Potter, and then the third one, Minions. So sticking with a really simple message. I think each of these has 3 words in the headline, but really taking these images and making them strong, using extensions. They didn't do extensions on all the units, but they were really selective in picking ones that were high profile, where they knew it would resonate. They also had a mobile component to this campaign, so people that passed the billboards were served mobile ads that were targeted after they passed them. So just a really smart use of their characters and making them the heroes. And knowing that out-of-home doesn't need to solve all of their marketing challenges. They could have easily had a billboard that said, Universal season pass, 30% off, go to the website, blah, blah, blah.com. But you don't need that. This is storytelling. And understanding, too, that their audience isn't just the adults driving the cars that are passing the billboards, but the children in the back seat that are the influencers that are going to say to their mom and dad, can we go there next year? I really want to go check out the new Minions exhibit, or whatever it is. So
when Universal came to you on this, like what were the kind of key things that you were guiding them with?
Universal's a great client. They do amazing creative. They've been doing amazing creative for years. We really act in a consultant role for them, and I like to say all the time that we're here to provide whatever level of support we need to clients. So whether it's bouncing ideas off of us on what we think would work creatively, whether it's use of color, typography, imagery, whether it's helping them with more sophisticated capabilities like being able to pick audience segments and target them effectively and figure out how the creative and the consumer journey match up. For them, for this campaign, I think it was all about just making it clean and simple and bold, leveraging mobile again as another step in the consumer journey to sort of lead those people to the final solution of getting to the website and buying season passes. So this is a client that I think is just hitting it on all cylinders, and they just continue to do great, strong work.
Nice, thank you. All right, Mindy.
so I'm not going to hop down like these guys did, but I'll stand. I just want to show another example of a before and after. And, you know, the one on the right, of course, was the first instinct of this local client. We are Lamar, we are 80% local, and this is a typical client. And I can't help but feel for this pool girl who had to clean a lot of pools to be able to buy an outdoor campaign. So we want it to be effective. We truly want it to work, so she will come back and be another a customer again. So we really, you know, had to spend time educating her. We had to teach her that it doesn't have to be informational anymore. It can be more conceptual. One of these ads makes you feel something. One of them does not. One of them makes you feel like you want a clean pool and to be swimming. And so we know that, you know, 46% of people that come in contact with an out-of-home campaign are going to search next. So I like to tell people that out-of-home is great for filling that top of the sales funnel. We're all about awareness, because most importantly for this local client, when somebody performs that search, we want them to search for pool girl maintenance and not search for pool cleaning in Corinth, Mississippi, right? So that's the difference. It's all about the awareness. This one, as with a lot of local clients, we did not have ROI to share, but I can tell you that since this one, she has 5 new contracts with us, and she's also referred 3 new clients. So I know it's working.
That's awesome. How many of y'all out there are struck, you know, or have to deal with like these local clients where, you know, this is like the typical day in and day out, but like they want the phone number, they want all that, right? So to that point, and you know, what you were hitting on, Mindy, kind of what are the key success factors that you would tell a client, like, you know, do these things and let the out of home do the rest?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's all about evoking some type of emotional connection with them. I mean, like you said, our audience is built in. We still have to make them look, and that's our job. That's the biggest, you know, that's the biggest thing we have to do. So we tell them the stats. We show them the people that are doing it really well, and we ultimately win a lot of battles, but we don't win them all.
And then the fact that you mentioned, you know, her brand, Pool Girl Maintenance, right? Search Pool Girl Maintenance, not you know, pool maintenance. That's key. So we got a question back here.
Yes.
Have you guys ever have to give in to bad suggestions?
Absolutely never. No,
Liar.
No.
You lie, Eddie. No, of course we do. Of course we do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just all about education, and sometimes they want to listen to us, and sometimes they don't. Outdoor works, though. Out of home works, whether it's good or bad, but it can work better with an ad that is better.
And to that point, yes, you know, we have to sometimes do stuff that we don't want to do. It's a little bit horrible thing to say.
Recommendation I have, and it works fairly well, is instead of focusing on their creative and maybe what they're struggling with and why it's not working, focus on showing them competitor examples of work that's already been done that was successful and that worked well, right? Whether it's in the same category, even if it's a new customer in a category that you don't have good examples of, you could show them examples of customers trying to achieve the same goals, right? Whatever their campaign goal is. So showing them great creative that's already been done rather than focusing on what maybe isn't so good about their current creative, and that'll hopefully get them moving in the right direction.
And just being honest with them, because at the end of the day, like if they still do that, but you were honest with them, and when it doesn't work, it's not a I told you so, but it's like, okay, are you ready now? So that's the key for me.
Yeah, Sean.
Yes, Sean.
I'm just going to ask the panel, perfect setup. How many campaigns have we lost fighting for good creative?
We have.
It's a good question. We're typically not the ones at the table making the decisions, so there's a buffer there. There's an area where there's some.
I know of one in my history. I know of one, and it was in Knoxville, Tennessee, years ago. And the guy, it was the newspaper ad on a billboard, and our AE passed it up, and he said, "You should go put this money in newspaper where it belongs," and he wouldn't take his money. And so word got back to Kevin Riley, who was CEO at the time, and he sent the account executive a check for the commission he missed out on because he appreciated it. So
That's
yeah.
cool. That's awesome. I would add to that, it's probably like an even split of the ones that we've lost, from being honest, but the ones that we've gained where, we've told them, like, no, you go put that somewhere else, to Mindy's point, that where they accept that or appreciate that, we don't want you to waste your money. Little story, I was telling them earlier, one of our sales reps, when I first came to Outfront, then CBS Outdoor, I talked to him about the creative process. He kind of bought into it hook, line, and sinker, and loved it. And he's won a lot of, in conjunction with my team, a lot of awards for a lot of the work he's done. He's no longer with the company because he used those campaigns, right? All these great creative examples of creative processes where initially it started out him saying, no, we're not going to do that. Let us do something that's actually makes sense for your brand. He is now the Southeast Regional Marketing Manager of a major QSR chain. And this was a guy that has no marketing background. Zero. All he knows is what makes a good campaign and how to get people's attention. So you'll lose some, but in the long run, I think you gain a lot more. Throw this to Chad now, sorry. Chad.
Oh, here. So the Air Zoo, this is it was actually just an airplane museum in Kalamazoo. They had a lot of really cool airplanes, and they got a new CEO that came in from NASA as he was like a rocket scientist. I think he worked on the Hubble Space Telescope program and all this, but he kind of goes around to various museums and revamps them and turns them into like science learning centers for kids. And he's really interested in the STEM kind of programs. So again, kind of like the previous one that I talked about, we had them into our office and we just sat down and discussed what their needs were. And the winter time is kind of a big dip for them for whatever reason. People aren't traveling into the community to visit. And so they wanted to get their attendance up during the winter months. And they also wanted to kind of show a new face to the community. They wanted to not just appear as a airplane museum. And there have been some interesting creative done for these guys in the past, but it was never anything that was kind of like this bold and vibrant. And so we took a tour of their facility. We really dove in. And as a matter of fact, I think we worked on this creative for about a month, just going back and forth, kind of going through our process. And it was a pretty intense creative process. But by the end, we put this up, and I think about 6 months later, we received some feedback from them that their winter was 30% up from the previous year with this creative up. So they're really happy, and they're adding a couple more boards, and they're putting all their digital dollars with us as well for the year. So this is just further proof that simple creative executions that are really eye-catching and vibrant can move the needle for our clients. A big win on this one for us is the fact there's no headline on it. There's no copy whatsoever. All we really have is there's an exit because we needed that. But the logo kind of says everything that it needs to say, and the visual said everything that it needs to say. So this gets down to one of the primary goals that I think we all tend to have for outdoor, which is simplicity in message and allow a visual to be big and bold and in your face and excite people. This is, I go back to Luke Sullivan's statement that we need to delight our audiences. And this is all about entertainment. I believe there was even a panel earlier today, the storytelling and advertising. If we can tell a story and make people want to know more, then we can move the needle. So.
That's awesome. And yeah, that this really keys in on the emotion, right? Just visual. And the fact that you actually got people in Michigan to leave their homes during winter is very commendable. I, for one, would not.
Especially this last winter, it was terrible.
Yeah, good on you, man. Very impressive. So this next example is something we worked on in New York for a dog training app. And the point I really want to make here is that this was a startup, actually a 2-week-old startup. And you do see one big digital there in Times Square, but the majority of this campaign was urban panels and car cards. That's where a lot of the success was found with this campaign. We threw in a cool AR factor there. as engagement, something where you can play with the dog. He did all sorts of things. Peed if you tap twice, and the cool thing about it though was a week or two after this campaign went up, because again, starting with that conversation, understanding that this person wasn't about like making a good dog. This company was about making your new friend for life. Two major CEOs of dog brands saw this on their commute into work on car cars, just these little car cards, and it resonated with them. And this 2-week-old startup ended up having meetings with two of the biggest dog brand CEOs, kind of like idols of hers, right? So 100% revenue and money well spent for her. She saved up, she made it happen. And the other point here is campaigns, right? This didn't exist in one format, right? This existed in social, right? It existed in mobile, and it existed in out of home. If we're still stuck in a world where we're selling just billboards, even if all the inventory you have is a billboard, right? If you're a mom and pop out of home company that only sells billboards, I still don't think that's any excuse not to think bigger, not to think of the brand as a bigger opportunity, because, and so I'm going on a tangent, and we'll get everybody's opinions here in a second, but if we can prove, as an industry, if we can prove that a campaign should start with out of home instead of a 30-second TV spot that has to be squeezed like hell into a billboard, that means we make more money. That means advertisers are going to start with us. Yeah, we have cheaper rates than a 30-second production, but and that's a big reason, but to be able to scale an idea that's on a billboard across an entire campaign, that's where the real money is for us. And I'd love to hear, the panel's thoughts on how they go about. I know, Chad, you were talking earlier about stuff Adams is doing on the campaign side. How important is that to y'all?
Well, so we've started incorporating, digital, so online tactics, and one thing within that is the connected TV aspect, and we're starting to dip our toe into that. And what that does for the creative teams is when we're generating ideas, those ideas that don't maybe make it into the outdoor space, but it was a really good headline or was a really good visual, it enables us to further the campaign and make it larger, and then turn a headline into a script that could then become a connected TV spot. So our ability to create entire campaigns, create that consistency that our clients need in order for the public to remember them is fantastic, and I think it just gets us all energized. So,
absolutely. Do you have any thoughts? No? All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you talk about how you sold through the augmented reality portion of this and how you kind of combine the two?
Yeah, so again, kind of during your panel, going back to the what if, right? Something, I forget who said it, but when they're brainstorming, they never say no, they just say yes and. Absolutely love that. That was kind of the process. We actually had the owner, CEO of Dogology, in on that brainstorming conversation, just going back and forth, understanding who she is and what she's doing. And one of our specialists on the out front side, Stephen Fishburne, was in on there as well. And it was this conversation back and forth that, if the tagline is supposed to be about making this person your friend, right? That this being, this dog, you want to hang out with your friend, right? You want to add that component to where you can actually engage with your friend. It's not somebody that you just lock up in a cage while you're away at work. It's someone you want to spend time with. So let's give people an opportunity to spend time with their dog. Granted, yes, it's not physically their dog, it's an AR thing, but that's kind of how we, that was the purpose of it being there, if that works. Yeah. Questions? All right. Next, I think we got Mike again.
All right, so this one is kind of gonna maybe not necessarily contradict some of the things we just said, but I wanted to pick a local advertiser that just really had a simple goal and to show that out of home alone can be very effective. if it's done smart and if you keep it simple. So we've been working with this company, Texas Direct Auto, for almost 10 years. They're a local used car sales company on eBay in the Houston market. And they don't have a lot of assets. They're not Universal Orlando. They don't have Spider-Man and Minions and all kinds of cool visuals to help promote used cars. So how do you do a billboard campaign that's going to raise awareness and make people remember your brand? We worked with them to come up with some really witty, simple, bold headlines, and it worked. And they continued to use it, and it worked over and over again to continually drive business to their store. We recently had the ability to do an attribution study with them with our new radar suite of tools to be able to prove the effectiveness by doing an attribution study that showed exposed versus unexposed, and this campaign actually drove 140% more people to their eBay store versus those that were unexposed. So even something as simple as headlines, if it's done well, if you keep it simple, and by the way, they spent 80% of their budget on out-of-home. This was a really competitive market for them. Lots of auto dealers doing the TV spots that Eddie mentioned, the crazy TV spots that we all know about, the local car ad salesmen. They were spending all their time and money doing TV spots, and these guys were being really smart buying billboards and putting them all across the market to make sure people knew about their store and where to go to find their products. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but it still has to be smart.
And it doesn't have to always be an award winner, an Obie winner. You know,
Yeah.
we just want them to be effective at the end of the day.
Agree.
Absolutely.
So Kalamazoo Public Schools, the community, we've got this amazing group of philanthropists that decided to donate money to allow any kid who went from kindergarten all the way through graduation free college. So it's free money to go to any in-state college. So if you went to Michigan State or U of M, Western, any of them. And they're trying to get more kids to come to the school. Like most inner city schools, their numbers are going down and they don't have a good reputation. And there's a lot of school of choice kind of things happening in that area as well. So we wanted to go out with a very bold message to make people realize that free college was an opportunity for their kids, and it was an option. If you move to Kalamazoo, you can absolutely get free college. And so we just went out there with a really bold, simple message and make it look like an official Michigan Department of Transportation sign alongside the freeway. And we had several different messages. There were probably, I think, 10 when it was all said and done, because it stretched through digital out of home as well as the static. And then we also had some online stuff. The interesting thing about the outcome of this story, the return on investment for them, is they didn't really grow based on the campaign. But the interesting thing is, at the same time that this campaign was out, other urban schools through the state of Michigan, their enrollment was dropping, and it was dropping significantly. Kalamazoo Public Schools stayed flat. And it was an interesting meeting with them when they were kind of cheering that. You know, they were saying, we stayed flat, because if you lose 1% of your student population, that equals like $1 million worth of lost revenue. And the fact that they were able to maintain is pretty big. And we got some really cool creative out of it too. As a matter of fact, I think this might be in the Obie.
So speaking about this campaign, how did that start? How did this conversation start with them?
They came to our office. We sat down. We had a roundtable discussion with them, and we wanted to just see what they were needing to do. And it was actually a whole team. They've got this board of people, and they're kind of a difficult board, you know, to be honest, as boards tend to be. But everybody could agree on the one thing, that the free college is something that is really unique to Kalamazoo Public Schools, and it makes people want to come. And so the biggest job that we had was convincing them to really hang their hat on that thing, because they've got a lot of other programs they wanted to promote. They got great music, they've got great sports, they've got really good academic programs. But the free college thing is the thing that's going to move the needle and make the consumer actually be interested in them. So, you know, the fact that we got that through was...
So is it fair to say, like, I mean, they had to concede, like they had to trust your team and be like, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to focus on this one messaging,
That's
even
right.
though there's multiple headlines.
And it's funny, this year we're back. We're doing some work with them, and we had the same battle, and we didn't win. So I think, kind of to some points out here earlier, we didn't get this simple with the next campaign. And as a result, I think they're going to, well, I don't know. I don't want to make any predictions. Never mind. They're going to do great.
Way to go, positive. So Mindy, on that point, how important is the trust, right? When you're talking with that client in that initial discovery, what kind of difference does that make on
It's
revenue?
huge just to have that personal connection. I think one of the questions that I've heard before is what makes a good account executive, and we have to make sure that at the end of the day they just genuinely care. I mean, they genuinely care and want to drive business. So
It's that simple. They just have to
they just have to
freaking care.
And you
That's-
can't train that. You have to. Everything else can be taught. You can't teach that.
It's true, totally. I think one of the last examples we have here, Dunkin' Donuts, and I want to point out that yes, this is Dunkin', sorry. It's a national brand, but this is a local client, right? Just the franchise owners. And something I definitely appreciate with the examples y'all have all shared is a lot of us, yes, we can make big impacts with national business, but I think the stronghold that a lot of the out-of-home companies here, and probably a lot of y'all in this room have, the biggest way you can make impact is with those local and regional clients, even if they are part of these national brands. And this is a prime example of a national brand, not especially a local franchise owner, not being in love with the national brand's creative and would rather not buy out of home if that's what they had to do. So here's a very simple connection between creative and ROI. It's either $0 or do something that isn't, let me rephrase that, that is more appealing to them, right? That connects with them. And in this example, it's all about timeliness. Yes, digital is a great way to do that, but if we're not super lazy, so is static, right? And the top one on the right actually became a cool 3D prop. We've got Eddie from Soft Signs over here, helped us out with that. But the main point I want to make with the ROI outside of them not buying at all is this is one location, right, that they kept changing. For this one location, this one franchise owner, they saw a lift of 14% in sales off of one billboard, right? And it's turned into this lasting partnership where like she uses it on her social media. And that goes right back to what Mindy was saying. The AE cared. They just actually cared about the success of the business. And that's what motivated that salesperson, which kind of brings me to one of my last questions for y'all. This is not an easy job. Someone asked, like, Sean, you asked, how many battles have you lost? Have clients ever said no? Yes, we've lost some, and yes, clients have said no, and yes, sometimes this job makes me lose the little hair that I have, and I'm going prematurely gray, and all these other horrible things, right? Hurts when I drop something, like all these bad things, but I stay in it because I freaking love it. So that my question to y'all is, why do you put up with this?
I stay in it because I've happened upon a career where I'm very right-brained and left-brained. I get to be in management, but also still exercise a creative muscle. Also work for a family-oriented company, so I'm able to give 100% to my company, but I'm also a damn good mom. And I have a really good work-life balance.
I just always love the challenge of working with different clients on different briefs and trying to come up with creative solutions to meet their needs. And I always like to think of creative as the widest definition, right? Not just what are we doing with the typography and the color and the imagery, not just data, but operationally, how can we be creative? Back to the difficult task of getting a client to embrace the ideas or the suggestions. Getting involved in the conversation as early as possible, right? And it's not always easy when we're a lot of times so far downstream from the decision makers, but having AEs and thinking of us as partners and collaborators internally, right? Even before we approach a client with a suggestion or an idea, and getting them to understand that we're here to help, right? I'm naturally a kind of person that's focused on when I see something that's broken or that I can make it better, I want to fix it, I want to help, whatever that may be. So that's always kind of been a motivating factor for me in keeping in this business and doing everything that we do.
I think this business, being in this end of this business, teaches you a lot about advertising and like what it really can do. When you get to meet with a small business owner and this is a medium that they can afford and you can blow them up and put them all over town and everybody talks about them, it's kind of addictive, you know, addicting. It's just a lot of fun to make that happen.
It's awesome. And one stat we didn't really highlight a lot, and I'd love to hear some final questions. Just, you got a panel of, you know, creative directors from the top creative out-of-home companies in front of you. Please throw something out. But there's a stat that says 70% of the effectiveness of a campaign, an out-of-home campaign, is dependent on creative. So for when you do have those pain in the butt clients that are pushing and pushing and pushing, just remember that, like, them renewing, them spending more money, doing anything with you in the future is directly tied to what these people do every day. It's what their teams do every day. And, you know, we're here to help you, whether you're part of an agency, whether you work at out of home. Shoot, even if you want to call me and you don't work at Out Front, I'm happy to talk to you because I just like to talk about it. Let us know. Any final questions? Does anybody have?
I got a question circling back to the Floyd and John Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
He has a really shitty board to start. And I'm curious, like, how much shaping conversation did you guys have to go through to get him on board with an idea that removed from that one little throw?
Really not a whole lot, to be honest, because that's the beautiful thing about having that conversation. So that you know, as you said, shitty board before was, hey, I need a billboard for people that got in a car wreck. I know, car wreck. And done. There was no conversation. Whereas when we had a conversation with him, we found out, like, you know, he literally was saying, like, I kind of want to be that superhero, right? I want to be that guy. And it was that brainstorming thing going back and forth. It's like, well, you know, in his picture, if you Google him, and normally I show a picture of him, he's, not that I am a hunk or anything, but he's kind of like this, like he's a little, like, not superhero-esque. And we're like, know what? You can be a superhero, right? Like, so we sold him on the idea of, I think it was like a dirt cheap photo shoot, like $300, $400 to do a photo shoot. You know, we had like the fan going, so like the little bit of a hair he had's kind of moving. Yeah, we gave him the shades, and we photoshopped the tie on there flapping around and blowing cars up. And it's that old trick, right? Like, my wife does it to me all the time. Like, we sold him his idea in a way, or made him feel like it was his idea. Definitely.
Have you guys had any experience with real estate?
With real estate?
Like trying to sell literally real estate, houses, buildings, apartments, etc. You guys have
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've used digital before. It's perfect to stream, new houses on the market, open houses, things like that. Yeah, for sure, it's perfect for digital.
Yeah, is that specifically just?
I'm just curious because it's our bread and butter where I come from, but the market has slowed down in the last couple years, so it's been really hard to get a good creative going to move.
Yeah, it is a difficult industry because I think they all have their own advertising budgets. So a lot of times if you can get them to kind of collaborate and kind of pull their funds together and almost share a digital campaign, that's worked in the past for us.
How you going? I'm Brad. I'm from a company in Australia, and I'm just interested to know, has the US out-of-home industry invested, be it in individual companies or as an industry creating campaigns
No, actually, the OAAA as an industry generally runs a campaign. We're actually looking at doing, kind of the reinvention of a campaign we ran a couple of years ago. But that is something that we do. And then individually, I know every now and then, each of our companies, we have our own versions of our own self-promos that, essentially speak to out of home. So yes, answer is yes. As an industry, we definitely do. We're always investing in that, and we kind of take a second look at it and figure out, okay, what worked, what didn't, how do we do better, and then individually, there's different ways that we express our own our brands.
So what levels of success have they achieved? Have they been things that you've been able to come back to?
What level?
Yeah.
There's, I'm probably not the guy to talk to about like specific marketing data points and all that.
We can share.
Yeah, the last OAAA campaign, there's a great campaign recap they have, a video on that gives the stats and the amount of success that it had. So, great example to.
And it's on the OAAA.org as well, that you can download all that.
I think we do a lot of great work, all of us, and some of that was touched on by some of the speakers this morning, but doing work with nonprofits or organizations that align with the OAAA and all the vendors that are involved with it in this country. So Project Yellow Light is a big one that we're supporters of that'll be launching in June, which is a campaign that's geared towards getting young people to not text and drive and the dangers of that. So it's a design competition that's open to any high school and college students. We pick a winning design. There's a panel of judges pick a winning design for high school and college. Those get run nationwide on available inventory. It's a great campaign, promotes creativity, gets young people in high school and college to be aware of out of home and the benefits of it, and help them sort of become part of the industry. So that's another great example where it's not necessarily us talking about our industry, but leveraging our inventory to promote a cause like that and focus on creativity.
Awesome. All right. Yes, Lynn.
What advice do you have for our salespeople in initiating conversations with clients about creative and head off some of the bad creative activity?
Chad, you want to take this one?
Sure.
So what advice would we give a salesperson about initiating the conversation with the client that would hopefully stop?
I'm trying to
bad?
think of a way to make it really succinct. It's got to be about really caring about the details of their business and what it is that they need to have happen. Because if we can get that, then they see us as a partner. And if they see us as a partner, then they'll trust us to create some work for them that's going to actually work. That's my experience, and the partner aspect is huge. Yeah, I guess that's the main thing I could say about it.
I think you can ask them a series of questions, but at the end of the day, you just want to find out what's keeping you up at night. What are you trying to overcome? What's giving you heartburn? Just tell me about your business.
So the thing I like to tell people, because there's all sorts of businesses out there, right? There's the laundry business. Everyone here excited about laundry businesses? That's something you can really get passionate about, right? No, you probably don't give a damn about laundry business, right? But that business owner, that's their livelihood. That's what they wake up every morning to go to and do. And so if I can just sit there and listen to them, I guarantee you I'm going to be able to pull out some level of passion that will make me understand that I've never thought that about laundry. Wow, that is actually really exciting. Now I have that nugget, and that's my campaign, right? So I would just tell salespeople, be curious and try and find their passion. Simple.
Have you guys ever cheated, a little bit cheated to start a conversation around a campaign? For example, we did a campaign with Mars that we put the campaign upside down. It was the whole campaign of you're not yourself when you're hungry. So we put the campaign upside down, and then they bought space in print media and stuff later on, saying sorry for the problem. It was a designer that was hungry and did not have Snickers,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. But we paid influencers to post and start up the conversation a little bit, so.
Well, see, I don't think that's cheating, though.
No?
I think
smart.
that's strategy.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah. No, kudos to you, yeah.
I was wondering because sometimes people want the conversation to start organically and stuff, but.
I think in this age we live in with, digital, your cell phones in your pocket, like, you should see more and more of that, and that is definitely something my team pushes as much as possible. Just give them enough to be curious, kind of the same advice to the AEs, like, curious what the heck is up with that. If it's designed, one of the pieces Chad was talking about, there were no words, it was just visually, aesthetically hitting a certain target, a certain audience, a certain emotion. If we can do that to cheat or make them search or get people to post stuff all day long, yeah. All right, I think that's it. Thank y'all so much for your questions.
thank
and
you.
Appreciate your time.